Good evening to one and all. Welcome you all to the Daily Indian Express newspaper analysis for the date 9th to 12th February 2024, brought to you by Ganesh IAS Academy. Okay, before getting into the newspaper analysis, I want to mention a certain update with regards to the other social media handles of the Ganesh IAS Academy. Ganesh IAS Academy operates not only on the YouTube as one of the as the social media platform, but also in the another social media platforms like Insta, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Reddit, Twitter, Telegram. So these are all the handles which has been operated by Ganesh IAS Academy, where the current affair related updates as well as the exam related information will be provided on the daily basis to the students. So the link for the every social media handles is provided in the below description. So go and have a look into it. So okay, let's get into the today's newspaper analysis. Mentioned here are the list of articles which we are going to have the analysis in the upcoming slides. So have a look at it. Okay, let's get into the analysis of every article one by one. Court reserves verdict, debates around the subcategorization of scheduled caste quota. So recently the argument for as well as against the subcategorization of the quota, scheduled caste quota have been finished and the verdict has been reserved by Supreme Court. So this is what the news is about. Let's look into what are all the debates that has been surrounding the subcategorization of this quota. First, we will look into how the news has been related with examination. Under prelims, the news is related to current events of Indian polity and governance related governance, constitution, as well as political system, Panchayat Raj, public policies, and rights issues. Similarly, under mains, GS paper 2, under polity, through a subtopic called structure, organization, and functioning of executive, judiciary, ministries, departments of government, pressure group, formal as well as informal association, and their role in the polity. So this is how the news has been related with examination. First, we will look into the explanation part of the news. The seven judge constitution bench, which has been headed by Chandrachud, has reserved its judgment in the subcategorization among the scheduled caste quota, and some states are saying is that, what they are saying is that despite reservation, some caste within the scheduled caste are underrepresented because major chunk of the reservation is being provided for the dominant scheduled caste. So those who are dominant within the scheduled caste, so they want to create a separate quota for the least benefited categories within the scheduled caste. And in this regard, during 2004, a 5-judge bench, E.V. Chinnaya versus State of Andhra, what they have held is that, see, Article 341 of the Constitution provides that only president can notify the caste that can come under scheduled caste, and the states doesn't have power to tamper with this. So this is what the judgment of E.V. Chinnaya versus State of Andhra. So now they return to the states have again returned to the Supreme Court against the earlier verdict of the Supreme Court itself, because most of the castes, those who are present in the scheduled caste, haven't got the enough representation which they have meant to. It is only certain handful of castes within the scheduled caste are getting more benefits, are benefited from the reservation. There are certain castes which haven't benefited from the reservation that have been provided for the scheduled caste. So that is the reason why again most of the states have again gone to the Supreme Court to relook into the E.V. Chinnaya cases. Okay, let's look into the historical aspect of this case. The case is nothing but the subcategorization of scheduled caste. During 1975, the Punjab has issued a notification where it has divided the 25% scheduled caste reservation that has been provided in the state into two categories. The first category includes the seats were reserved solely for Valmiki as well as Maravi Sikh community, which are among two of the most economically as well as socially backward community within the scheduled caste category. And under this policy, they will be given preference in terms of reservation for education and public employment and it remained in force for 30 years. But it ran into legal hurdle because during 2004 only Justice E.V. Chinnaya case versus State of Andhra judgment was pronounced by Supreme Court. What it has said is that it is only the under Article 341, the President has the power to notify which all the communities will be coming under scheduled caste. The states doesn't have power to notify the members of the scheduled caste. So because of this judgment that has been provided or made by Supreme Court during 2004, this notification of Punjab ran into a legal hurdle. So during 2 years later, that is during 2006, where Punjab and Haryana High Court in Dr. Krishna Paul versus State of Punjab has struck down the notification of Punjab providing reservation for the certain communities within the scheduled caste, and the appeal also been made. In 2006, the Punjab attempted to bring back the law by passing the Supreme Court judgment, which again got struck down during the subsequent years. In 2014, Supreme Court in Davinder Singh versus State of Punjab referred the appeal that has been made by Punjab to the 5-judge constitution bench, and the subheading is the reconsidering Chinnaya. So in 2020, the constitution bench headed by Justice Arun Mishra, what they have held is that the court's 2004 decision, that is in the decision that has been made in E.V. Chinnaya cases, need to be relooked. Why? Because the Supreme Court agreed with the premise that the scheduled caste are homogeneous group and said there are unequals within the list of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe as well as socio-economic backward classes. In 2018, the Jarnail Singh versus Lakshmi Gupta, Supreme Court also upheld that the concept of creamy layer need to be introduced within Supreme Court scheduled caste itself. So this is what the stand with regards to the Supreme Court for the past few years. Since the E.V. Chinnaya cases is the 5-judge cases, this case has been transferred to the 7-judge cases, 7-bench cases. As a result of which, it is being headed by the 7-bench judge will be headed by Justice Chandrasud, based on which only the arguments to and against the subcategorization have been concluded and the judgment is right now being resolved. So let's look into the arguments. What are the arguments that has been placed against as well as for the subcategorization within the Supreme scheduled caste? The Advocate General of Punjab, what they have said is that, see, it was mistaken that the states could not tamper with the classes that comprised the President list under Article 341. Why? Because under Article 16, subclass 4, the Advocate General has pointed out that the states can provide reservation for backward classes who are not adequately represented. Similarly, the Additional Advocate General of Punjab, what they also said is that Article 342A, which has been inserted into the Constitution as provided that the Justice Chinnaya case will no longer apply. Why? Because this provision empowers states as well as union territory to maintain a list of socially as well as economically backward classes. So these are all the arguments that has been placed for the subcategorization of scheduled caste. And the senior advocate Sanjay Hadje, appearing for the respondent, that is against the subcategorization of scheduled caste, what they have argued is that, see, all the communities included in the President's list suffered from some form of untouchability. The Constitution Assembly made a choice, a rash conscious choice, that there should not be any comparison between who suffered the most amount of discrimination, because everyone have suffered some amount of discrimination, and no comparison should be made within those who have suffered more amount of discrimination and those who have suffered the least amount of discrimination. Such kind of comparison should not be made, was the consciousness during the Constitution Assembly debate as well as the Constitution Assembly members. That is the argument that has been placed against the subcategorization. And what they also claimed is that if a community is named in presidential list doesn't receive reservation benefits, means they would only be left with a stigma of being a scheduled caste. So these are all the arguments that has been placed against subcategorization of scheduled caste. So this is what the debates that have been made for as well as against the subcategorization, and the judgment is being right now being reserved by the Supreme Court. So okay, this is what the news is about. Let's look into the further details of the news. Not further details, what are all the things which we needed to be further aware of? We should be aware of what are all the equality provisions that has been provided in Constitution, and also we should be aware of National Commission for Scheduled Caste as well as Scheduled Tribe, and then we should be aware of the structure, functioning as well as objective, and then constitutional mandate for the Supreme Court as well as High Court, and you should be aware of the recently introduced EWS reservation. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. Why Monetary Policy Committee kept repo rate unchanged? So the news is related to the recent decision by Monetary Policy Committee to keep the repo rate unchanged. So let's look into how the news has been related with examination. Under prelims, the news is related to economic and social development. Similarly, under mains, it has been related to GS paper 3, economic and development, under a subtopic called Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development and employment. So this is how the news has been linked with examination. Let's look into further details of the news. So interest rate on home, vehicle, personal as well as other loans in the banking system will remain unchanged by RBI's Monetary Policy Committee, and the central bank also retained a stand of retained the stance as withdrawal of accommodation. So what is this accommodation? Accommodation is nothing but a policy stand of monetary policy which favors the growth by reducing interest rate. Similarly, there is another stance called neutral stance, which means that the policy gives equal treatment to inflation as well as growth. So there won't be any kind of increase or decrease in the interest rate of the monetary policy during this stance. And there is a stance called hawkish stance, which means that there will be increase in the interest rate. Why? Because during this stance, monetary policy will be giving more importance to containing the inflation, as a result of which interest rate will be raised. So this is what the different types of stance being made by RBI, the Monetary Policy Committee. So in this committee, they have made a stance of withdrawal of accommodations, and the central bank has retained headline inflation forecast at 5.4% for the current fiscal. So this is what the meetings, the details of the meetings is about, or the outcome of the meetings is about. Let's look into the impact of the decision on lending as well as deposit rate. See, the interest rate on the loans as well as deposit will remain unchanged, but there will be certain segments of loans which will see an increased interest rate. Why? Because RBI has recently hiked the risk weights on certain retail loan segments, which will be definitely leading to increased interest rate on those segments. And at the same time, all external benchmark lending rates that are linked to repo rate will not rise, and then EMI, that is equated monthly installment, will also not rise, but due to competition from mutual funds. Why? Because the deposits are right now being flying away from the banking institutions, and they have been flying to mutual funds deposits. Because of the increased competition from mutual funds, banks are likely to increase their deposit rate, as a result of which the deposit rate is going to rise. Means similarly, through this they wanted to mobilize the more amount of deposits within their banks because of the increased competition from mutual funds. So this is what the impacts it is going to create on the lending as well as deposit rates. So let's look into what is the reason for the repo rate being unchanged or kept unchanged. It is because of the retail inflation which is continuing to remain above the 4% target of RBI. The retail inflation has rose to 5.55% in November, 4.8% in October, as well as 5.02% in September, and then 5.69% in December. So in all this month, we could able to see that the inflation, the retail inflation remained above the 4% target of RBI. Even for financial year 25, that is the upcoming financial year, RBI has also forecasted this financial year's interest rate will be 4.5%, which is way higher than the limit that has been set by RBI. That is the reason why the interest rate have been kept unchanged. And also, inflation rate will not only be depending on the interest rate, but it will also be depending on the evolving food inflation. And there is uncertainty that is prevailing in food price due to seasonality of the agriculture system, and then the sustained pause. This is not the first month. Previous month also there was a pause in the repo rate increase or decrease, and this pause in the repo rate is to benefit the Indian economic recovery, and the growth in capex, that is the capital expenditure, witnessed for the past few months in the financial year 24. It is also pushing the economic growth, but at the same time certain amount of inflation also. So this is what the reason why the repo rate have been kept unchanged for in this Monetary Policy Committee meeting. So what is the basis for the 7% GDP projection by the RBI is, see, the policy panel have suggested that a low GDP growth of 7% from the 7.3% for the financial year 24, and factors like geopolitical tensions, volatility in international financial markets, as well as geo-economic fragmentation is going to pose risk to economic outlook. And the government projected, this is, and on the other hand, the government panel also projected a higher nominal growth of 10.5% in the interim budget. This nominal growth is nothing but the growth rate at the current market price without excluding the inflation, and the higher nominal growth will be reducing the government fiscal deficit, and the recovery in rabi sowing as well as the sustained profitability in manufacturing, and then resilience of services, and then continuous increase in the capital expenditure will be supporting the economic activity for the upcoming years. And the key drivers or the demand side will be household consumption, which is also expected to improve, and healthy balance sheet, and upturn in the private capital cycle, and then improved business sentiment will also be contributing for the increased growth for the next financial year and then the 7.7% of the growth in the first half of the 24, and then the moderation of the growth in the second half of the year because of El Nino impact has led to the conclusion that there will be the GDP growth will be around 7%. So this is what the projection that has been made by government. So what is the reason for there is no changes in policy stance? That is the withdrawal of accommodation stance. First is, it is because of incomplete transmission of rate. So the previous increased repo rate transmission haven't reached the entire banking system. So RBI is right now waiting for the transmission to happen, and so that only they will be deciding whether to increase or decrease or keep the policy stand as constant or withdraw the policy stand which they are right now maintaining. They will be deciding only after the complete transmission of the interest rate which they have risen in the previous Monetary Policy Committee meeting. And also, as I said, inflation that has been remaining above 4%. And what the experts are saying is that, so the deficit in banking system as well as the real rates are reasonably high, and are likely to increase as the inflation is down. So, which is the stronger case for neutral stance for the RBI, but they haven't made a neutral stance until now because of these two reasons. So they are waiting for the complete transmission, as well as they wanted to the inflation rate to settle down. But these are all the conditions that favors the RBI's neutral stance. And at the same time, the RBI is expected to maintain the system's liquidity at slight deficit rate. Why? Because to ensure that there is a better transmission of repo rate increase takes place. So this is what the reason why there is no changes in the policy stance by the RBI. So let's look into what are all the things which we needed to be further aware of. We should be aware of what is structure, function, as well as mandate of RBI, and also we should be aware of what is banks, what is NBFC, what are the difference between them, what is legal backup they are having. These are all the things which we needed to be further aware of. Thirdly, we should be aware of small finance bank, regional rural bank, their statutory provisions, as well as their regulatory authority. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. Polygamy in India, what the data say. So the news article is related to the prevailing situation of polygamy in India. Okay, let's look into how the news has been related with examination. Under prelims, the news was related to current events of national as well as international importance. Similarly, under mains, it has been related with salient features of Indian society, diversity of India, which comes under GS paper 1, Indian society. Okay, this is how the news has been related with examination. Let's look into the details of the news. Uttarakhand has recently passed Uniform Civil Code Bill 24, which brings uniformity in the personal law like marriage, divorce, inheritance across the communities, but it excludes tribal people. And it extends the rule of monogamy to Muslim community, and one of the conditions that it favors for solemnizing the marriage is neither party should have a spouse living at their time of marriage. So this is what the condition that has been inserted in the marriage law through the Uniform Civil Code of Uttarakhand, and this clause already existed in Hindu Marriage Act 1955, but the Muslim personal law allowed men to have up to 4 wives. So this is what the explanation or the introduction part of the news. Let's look into what is the limitations, that is our limitations in the official data. The government has data on polygamy based on 2 sources. One is National Family Health Survey and another is the decadal census. So what is the lacunae these data have? There is a lacunae in census. First we look into the lacunae in census. No direct data on the polygamy is available in the decadal census. Why? Because there is no questions related to polygamy within the decadal census. But the incidence of polygamy can be referred indirectly through the various parameters, like in the case of measuring the difference in number of married men and number of married women. And if the number of married women is higher than number of married men, means then there is a chance that there is a prevalence of polygamy in the society. But it could not be surely said. Why? Because there is other chance that men may be going abroad, leaving their wife in their hometown, will also be leading to increased number of married women in India when compared to married men in India. So this is what the confusion that is prevailing in the indirect reference of polygamy from the decadal census. Okay, let's look into what does this National Family Health Survey data is about and what lacunae it has. See, National Family Health Survey is the latest data because it is available up to 2019 to 21. So it is the latest survey being conducted by the government with regards to the health, and it also contains direct question related to polygamy, but it covers only 6.1 lakh households. So the sample size is very less, and this household percentage is less than 1% of the total number of households in India. And the last government study on polygamy was conducted in 1974, back, that is more than 50 years ago, which says that Buddhists, Jains and Hindus have the highest rate of polygamy than Muslims. So this is what the lacunae in data, and then lacunae in data with regards to the census and family health surveys about. So what is the census? What does the census data say? So according to the census 2011, so this is the latest recent census which the government has. There are 28.65 crore married men in India, and there are 29.3 married women in India. This difference could be due to polygamy or due to men going abroad, leaving their wives in the hometown. And the highest discrepancy in the population, or the highest differences, could be seen only could be found on Hindus, because they are the majority in terms of numbers in population, followed by Muslims, Sikhs, Christians and Buddhists. So this is what the data says. And when compared to their population, the percentage of polygamy that is prevailing when compared to their population, if this criteria is going to be taken, means it is then Muslims as well as Christians reports the great difference between the married men and women. And what does this National Family Health Survey data says? So the data shows polygamy prevalence was highest among the Christians, followed by Muslims as well as Hindus. 2022 study by International Institute of Population Science, right? What it is saying is that the polygamy in India levels and differentials, the data analyzed from National Family Health Survey 3, 4 and 5, what it has said is that it showed that the polygamy marriages have decreased from 1.9% in 2005-06 to 1.4% in 2019-21 period. And this is what the data that has been bought by IIPS, that is International Institute of Population Science. And the Buddhists who reported the 3.8% incidence of polygamy in 2005-06 time period saw the greatest dip of 65.7%, that is to 1.3% in 2019-21. And the incidence of polygamy in the total population also fell by 26.31%. So this is what the data as well as the situation in India with regards to the polygamy is about. Let's look into what are all the things which we needed to be further aware of. First, we should be aware of the urbanization problem in the society, the role of women, most importantly the middle class working women in the society and the problems faced by them. Secondly, we should also be aware of the Indian family system, their functions, and then the globalization on the globalization impact on the Indian society. So these are all the other areas which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. At 6.9 trillion rupees, central public sector enterprises investment rise by 20% in the April to June. So this is what the news is about. Let's look into the linkage of the news with the examination. Under prelims, it has been related with economic and social development. Similarly, under mains, it is related to Indian economy on issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development and employment, which comes under GS paper 3. Let's look into the details of the news. See, the central public sector enterprise have achieved 83% of their combined capex target for the financial year 24 in April-January time period. And what they have spent is that they have spent up to 6.09 trillion rupee. On an annual basis, these entities, on the annual basis of these entities, the capital expenditure grew by 20% on first month of the first 10 months, that is from April to January of this financial year. The capex target for CPSE as well as other agencies was set by 7.33 trillion for this financial year, and it is 13% higher than financial year 23. And the railways, National Highway Authority of India, petroleum energy, central public sector enterprises are the largest public sector investors. That plays a key role in crowding the capex from other entities. And railways is investing more on functions like capacity improvement works, that is doubling, quadrupling, electrification, introducing the high speed rails in the Indian railway system. So these are all the capex expenditure being made by Indian Railway. So this capex investment could lead to job creation, and the capital formation in India is led by the public sectors, mainly the central, state as well as the state run enterprises. So these are all the agencies that are leading the capital expenditure in India that has been happening for the past few years. So let's look into the central public sector enterprise. Say the Department of Public Expenditure is the nodal authority for the central public sector enterprise, and they will be formulating the policy for the functioning of CPSE, and it is CPSE is government companies besides the other statutory organization, and more than 50% of share in these companies will be held by central government. And the subsidiaries of these companies in India will also be called as CPSE, but it doesn't cover departmentally run enterprises as well as the banking institution and insurance. And CPSE have been classified into 3 categories. First is the Maharatna. So the criteria that have been involved in classifying a particular organization as Maharatna is they need to have a Navaratna status. Secondly, they need to be listed on Indian Stock Exchange within prescribed the shareholding under the SEBI guidelines. And on average, the annual turnover of more than 25,000 crore need to be made in the last 3 years, and then annual net worth of 15,000 crores need to be made in the last 3 years, and then annual net profit after tax of more than 5,000 crores need to be made in the last 3 years, and they should have a significant global presence. So these are all the criteria will be considered for classifying particular enterprise as the Maharatna enterprise. Second is the Navaratna. The public sector will be classified as Navaratna if they are already the member of Miniratna 1 Schedule A and must have obtained excellent or very good MOU rating in the 3 of the last 5 years, and they should have a score of at least 60 or above in the following 6 indicators, that is net profit to net worth, manpower cost, PBDIT to capital employed, PBDIT to turnover, earnings, and intersectoral performance. And these are all the maximum score of the indicators in each index. Combined in all this, a particular organization need to have at least 60 to be classified as Navaratna. So these are all the criteria for Navaratna status. Thirdly, it is the Miniratna. So if an organization need to be classified as Miniratna, category 1 means it need to have made profit in the last 3 years, and then the pre-tax profit is 30 crores or more in the one of the 3 years, and then a positive net worth need to be made. Secondly, if organization need to be made as a category 2, Miniratna category 2 status means this CPSE should have made profit in the last 3 years continuously, and then they need to have a positive net worth. So these are all the criteria that has been followed for classifying an organization as Miniratna organization. So what are the things which we needed to be further aware of? We should be aware of what is capital expenditure and revenue expenditure and difference between both of them. Secondly, we should also be aware of what is interim budget and what is economic survey, and then what is normal budget, and what are all the important schemes, initiatives that have been made through the recently made interim budget. Thirdly, we should also be aware of the PLI scheme, manufacturing policy of India. So these are all the other areas which we needed to be further aware of. With this, we have reached the end of this talk. After Pakistan's fractured mandate, let's look into how the news has been related with examination. Under prelims, the news was related to current events of national as well as international importance. Similarly, under mains, it is related to bilateral, regional, and global groupings and agreements involving India or affecting the India's interest. So this is how the news has been related with examination. So let's look into the key question for India. Whom does New Delhi talks to? So independent candidates backed by Imran Khan parties have led the election by, they haven't got a majority, but the independent members overall seats is higher than the other two parties or the established parties of Nawaz Sharif as well as the people parties of Pakistan. And the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf is the party of Imran Khan. They have been barred from contesting in the election under the name as well as the symbol which they have had. And the Nawaz Sharif party, which is the Pakistan Muslim League party, have won around 75 seats, and the Bhutto Zardari that is the family, the party of the Benazir Bhutto, that is Pakistan People's Party, what they have got only 54 seats. And independently, none of these three parties, these two parties as well as the combined share of the independent members, haven't got enough majority to form a government. So a new government in Delhi in May, that is by May, India will also be having new government, will have to take a long and the balanced approach whether India should continue its diplomatic its talks with the civilian government or with the general headquarters, that is with the Pakistan military. Why? Because the Pakistan military is powerful and they have the potential to manipulate the civilian governments. So civilian government will be is under the control of the Pakistan military in the Pakistan. So India need to have a balanced approach whether to engage with the civilian government or with the Pakistan military. And what are the key takeaways in the election that have been concluded in the Pakistan is, first is, so despite the people who have turned out in the large amount to vote for Imran Khan's backed independent members, the army have manipulated the election in their favors. And because from the above slide we could able to see that no parties have got the enough majority to form the government. So it is only the hung party or the hung government that is going to be formed, which is very beneficial for the Pakistan military. And this election have been manipulated by the Pakistan military, because large amount of people have voted for the Imran Khan backed independent members. Despite it, the hung government is going to be formed, which is very favorable for Pakistan military. Second is the PTI, that is the party of Imran Khan, have managed to be the major player in the battleground of Punjab as well as Sindh as well as Balochistan. These are all the areas where the regional parties like PPP as well as the Pakistan Muslim League have their hold. But by defeating them in their own regional battleground, what PTI has announced is that they are right now increasing their strength in the national level, and the other two parties, that is the Pakistan Muslim League and then the PPP, are reducing could not able to establish their foot in their regional areas itself. So this is what the second takeaway. Third is, in fact, neither of the Sharif or the Bhuttos have the required number of seats on the even if the Nawaz Sharif government, Nawaz Sharif party as well as Bhutto Zardari party is going to combine, means they would, even though after combining they won't be having enough majority to form a government. So it is compulsory, or it is going to be that hung government or the coalition government is going to be formed in the Pakistan, and with the fractured mandate, that is with the hung assembly that is going to be formed, the Pakistan army now has the complete control. Why? Because the Nawaz Sharif, who was appointed as prime minister by Pakistan, he challenged the military. During the 2017-18 period itself. In the subsequent years, the Imran Khan was appointed by military as the prime minister. But after some years of time, Imran Khan also challenged the military. So military of Pakistan doesn't want neither of the party to form a strong government in the Pakistan. So that is the reason why they have manipulated in a way that no party will be having a strong majority government. So that is the reason why this minority government or the coalition government that is going to be formed will be favoring only the Pakistan military, and this is being manipulated by the military itself. So these are all the key takeaway of the election. And what are the things which we needed to be further aware of is, we should be aware of the first past post system and then single transferable vote. What is the difference between both of them? Secondly, we should also be aware of the Election Commission of India, their constitutional provision, and then the recently introduced the collegium system to appoint the election commissioners in India. Thirdly, we should also be aware of RT Act, that is Representation of People Act, the election rules, and other statutory function that is related to elections in India. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. Let's look into today's practice prelims question. Mentioned here is the today's practice prelims question. So those students those who are watching this session online, please do comment the option point for the question which you are seeing right now on the board. So with this, we have reached the end of today's session. Please do like, comment, share as well as subscribe Ganesh IAS YouTube channel so that you will be receiving daily current affairs session notification and also weekly environmental and science and tech current affairs notification in your YouTube channel, in your YouTube. So thank you.